Habitat destruction, defined as the elimination or alteration of the conditions necessary for animals and plants to survive, not only impacts individual species but the health of the global ecosystem. Habitat loss is primarily, though not always, human caused. Today, we'll be talking about the destruction of habitat. Habitat is an ecological or environment area that is inhabited by a particular species of animal, plant, or other type of organism. On the other hand, habitat destruction, when a habitat is destroyed, the plants, animals, and other organisms that occupied in that habitat have reduced carrying capacity so that populations become declined and extinct. Humans have used their technologies to remove trees and other plants life from wide areas of their natural habitat for the purpose of creating agricultural lands, industrial zone, roadways, or residential and commercial development. Humans have drained, filled, or redirected wetlands, ponds, stream, and other natural water habitats for these same purposes, collectively known as habitat destruction. These activities have had the effect of displacing plants and animal species important to the maintenance of a balanced ecosystem. Human agriculture has produced a variety of negative effects due to inattention to its impact on the natural environment. Failure to use cover crops between planting cycles has exposed bare soil to erosion, resulting in loss of topsoil and sedimentation of water sources. Overcropping is the failure to allow soil to recover nutrient of organic matter content between plantings. Overgrazing is the practice of allowing large number of domestic animals to graze in an area too small to support them. Let's move on to the destruction of grassland habitat. Grassland habitat is characterized by their flat, open pastures and abundance of nutrient-rich soil. More than a quarter of the world's land and about 70% of its agricultural land is covered by grasslands. They are naturally dominant vegetation. Grasslands are found where there is not enough regular rainfall to support the growth of forest, but not so little that a desert form. In fact, grasslands often lie between forests and deserts. These are the causes of grasslands habitat destruction. Number one is poor agricultural practices because it can ruin soil and strip grasslands of life. If crops are not rotated properly, the soil can become infertile and nothing can be grown for several years. Monocropping, or growing only one crop at a time, just like corn, which is typical in the Philippines, is an agricultural practice that depletes the soil nutrients. Further, because grasslands thrive off of biodiversity of plants and animals, monocropping that provides only a single type of plant tends to weaken the biome and increases vulnerability to natural disasters. Number two is overgrazing. Overgrazing livestock can consume, trample, and destroy grasses. Selective grazing can reduce the competitive nature of the entire ecosystem by weeding out some plants and allowing others to overpopulate. Additionally, conventional agricultural croplands often provide few food sources and nesting areas for birds. Number three is crop clearing. Development of urban areas is increasingly cutting into grassland habitat. Invasive species can displace native plants and reduce the quality of grassland. Invasive plants may not be equipped to handle extreme weather, like droughts and wildfires, thus resulting in further habitat loss. Number four, conversion to agriculture. It means to feed a growing human population. Most of the world's grasslands, including the American prairies, have been converted from natural landscape to fields of corn, wheat, or other crops. These are the effects of grassland destruction. Grassland mostly consists of herbs, grasses, and shrubs. rather than trees. Although grasslands often go unnoticed, they play a very important role in our environment and ecosystems. Grasslands provide habitats for animals and also produce a portion of the oxygen we breathe. The loss of these grasslands can put a limitation to the amount of clean drinking water we have. With the loss of these lands, wildlife will be looking for new homes, affecting many other ecosystems. Since croplands produce large amount of carbon dioxide, our climate will be hugely impacted, contributing to global warming. Frequency of landslides and dust storms may increase. The degraded land, less fertile ground, cannot yield crops, nor can animals graze in these fields. With a dramatic decrease in plant diversity in this ecosystem, more carbon and nitrogen may be released into the atmosphere. These results can have serious effects on humans, such as displacing herders from their community, a decrease in vegetables, fruit, and meat that are regularly acquired from the fields, and a catalyzing effect on global warming. These are the possible solutions to prevent destruction of grasslands. Number one is continue education efforts, particularly among farmers, on how to protect the soil and prevent soil erosion. Number two is protect and restore wetlands, which are an important part of grassland ecology. Number three is rotate agriculture crops to prevent the sapping of nutrients. Number four is plant trees as windbreaks to reduce erosion on farm fields. Number five, conduct controlled dry season burning to stimulate fresh plant growth and to restore calcium to the soil that builds up in the dry grasses. Some species of native plants need occasional fire to thrive, while blazes can also help remove invasive species. Let's move on to the destruction of ocean habitat. Ocean habitat destruction and loss is where the marine environment or the ecological setup is unable to support life due to degradation. This is a process that is contributed by various natural and human activities. Most countries have had the opportunity to stock marine animals and plants. These are the causes of ocean habitat loss and destruction. Number one is climate and seas change. Scientists explain that when there is high concentration of carbon dioxide in the air, the water absorbs much of it. The water gets contaminated and the level of heat in the water rises beyond of the expectations of life. When the ocean temperatures rises, there are other associated adverse impacts that are experienced in the aquatic environment. Number two is climate change related heat. The heat melts the ice caps and as a result, there is a resultant rise in the ocean level. The melted ice caps and glaciers contaminate the water and this threatens the life of the aquatic plants and animals. Number three is pollution. There are some human activities which are responsible to this destruction, which is especially the marine ecological conditions, and such may mean alteration to destruction to the marine habitat. Such can entail water pollution, air pollution, and land pollution, which intoxicate the environment and makes the water contaminated. Number four is unsustainable fishing. It is always important that the fishing activity has the ability to support the environmental conservation attempts. Too much aggressive fishing activity can damage the marine habitat as it leads to the loss of many fish and aquatic fishes. Number five is lack of protection from the governments. Where governments have failed to acknowledge the importance of conserving the natural habitat, there is higher probability that the negative impacts will be made. In the case of marine habitats, when there are no policies regulating access to such areas, sea plants and animals will shoulder the burden of irresponsible acts. Number six is eutrophication. Eutrophication can be understood as the process where the fertilizers from land are washed off into the waters. These fertilizers always contain phosphate and nitrate ions. And when they come into contact with the waters, they form basic and acidic compounds, thereby leading to dense growth of algal blooms, which in return create intolerable environment that cannot support aquatic life. Number 7 is development of coastal places. Due to the existence of water transport, many countries develop a consequential drive to develop their coastal regions, but in the process, less or no concentration is rendered on the need to conserve the natural marine habitat and all that it contains. So these are the effects of ocean habitat destruction. Number 1 is low oxygen concentration. When the marine habitat is destroyed and is at the brink of vanishing, there are various effects that would be likely. The first major impact that acts as determinant of influences the outcome of the other is that oxygen concentration in the water gets to the lower level to the extent that it can barely support aquatic life. Number 2 is migration of marine animals. Some animals may be forced to migrate on sensing that there is that element of environmental hostility. It means that the country or the people that border this particular water body will be obviously deprived of the opportunity to freely gain from the benefits of the aquatic plants and animals. Number 3 is food reduction. Because there is some degree of dependence between the terrestrial and aquatic lives, the former will be hit by the depletion of the latter. A significant example that can be cited in this particular scenario is that humans depend on some sea fish such as octopus, starfish, salmon, and much more food. When they are depleted, humans will definitely suffer from that negative impact. Number 4 is extinction of animal and plant species. Animals such as whale, shark, and many others depend on other aquatic ones such as seals for food. Extinction of one means that extinction of the others in the food chain. The whole consequence of the marine habitat loss and destruction is that leads to death and migration of animals. Some plants also die and become extinct due to the extreme ecological conditions. Number 5 is rapid land conversion rate, where marine habitat loss and destruction is characterized by the disappearance or the decrease in water masses. There is quick land conversion rate. This may benefit human for settlement, but the other benefits drug life will surely vanish. Number 6 is low of coastal natural beauty. The beauty of coastal places is detectable plants and animals that are existent. This implies that when the natural habitat is enriched or even destroyed, such as species or animals and plants become extinct. The extinction takes away the beauty of the coastal areas because its natural aspect is taken away. Number 7 is loss of revenue to the governments. Coastal regions are major tourist attraction sites. Not only do the sandy beaches attract people, but also the picturesque view of the aquatic plants and animals play crucial roles. Whenever such animals and plants are rendered extinct, the beauty of these places is taken away, and this implies that the countries have to contend with decrease in tourism activities and, as such, the loss in revenue. These are the possible solutions of ocean habitat loss and destruction. Controlling pollution. The first measure that would be useful in combating this environmental threat would be the step to control environmental pollution. Environmental conservation policies. Human discipline would be quite necessary in ensuring that the problem of marine destruction is solved. How would this happen? Perhaps various environmental conservation bodies such as United Nations Environment Program or UNEP can be in liaison with the various governments so that laws seeking to control industrialization and waste disposal are ratified. Controlled fishing. There are other associated activities can be used constructively. This may entail the controlled or moderated fishing, which is sustainable. Civic education. Humans sometimes need to be educated on how they can respect the sanctity of the laws of nature. This encompasses the duty to treat the plants and animals with care, restricting over-aggressive coastal developments. Other policies can be formulated which support and give guidance on what needs to be done during coastal urbanization to preserve the marine habitats. Limiting land conversion drive. When uncontrolled, human settlements can be a nuisance to the existing ecosystem. In the coastal regions, it can get over-ambitious, and this connotes doom to the marine habitat. As a consequence, plants and animals will be endangered, such as human activities can be moderated by limiting land and conversion drive, using designate routes only during shipping. Countries that are using water transport can go ahead and control the activities. This can be achieved through the strict use of designate routes in order to limit the spread of danger that can be caused by the ships. Destruction of polar habitat. Life in the planet's polar regions can be incredibly difficult. Bitterly cold winds sweep across the landscape. Winter temperature can reach deep into the negatives, and the winter night can last for months. But these seemingly barren landscapes are home to a rich diversity of wildlife, both on land and under the sea surface that has evolved to survive these harsh conditions. Millions of people also live in the Arctic, but Antarctica has no permanent inhabitants. Antarctica is protected by a 1959 treaty that established the continent as a place to be used only for peace and science, though several thousand scientists and support staff periodically inhabit the area in the pursuit of research. But even the relatively untouched expanse of Antarctica has not been immune to the effects of climate change. And the Arctic, in addition to climate change, has suffered from pollution, development by the oil and gas industry, and overfishing. These are the causes of polar habitat destruction. Number one, pollution. Pollutants from human activities tend to make their way to polar regions, transported via ocean currents, migratory birds, and other means. Marine debris, which can entangle wildlife, may stick around for long periods as the region's extended, dark, and cold winters inhibit the breakdown of chemicals. In addition, toxic contaminants become concentrated as they move up the food chain, a process called biomagnification, and are the highest in top predators, such as polar bears. At the very top of the food chain, humans are also exposed to high levels of these toxins in traditional Arctic foods. Number two is oil and gas development. The Arctic holds some of the world's largest untapped oil and gas reserves, but getting to those precious resources, whether on land or offshore, can have devastating environmental impacts. Infrastructure for this development project can destroy habitat, fragment migration routes, and drain freshwater resources. And when something goes wrong and oil spill occurs, Arctic wildlife can be killed and habitat contaminated for years. Number three is climate change. Climate change is already altering Arctic habitats. The region has warmed by nearly 10 degrees Fahrenheit since 19,000s and continues to warm 2 to 3 times faster than the average for the rest of the world. Summer ice cover is shrinking, permafrost is melting, and coastlines have been exposed to erosion. Animals such as polar bears and walruses are losing habitat. Sea ice is also disappearing in Antarctica, where its loss threatens to wipe out the penguin species that live there. Overfishing. Around the world, including in the Arctic Ocean and the Southern Ocean surrounding Antarctica, humans are taking fish out of the water faster than fish can reproduce and be replaced. In the Barents Sea, a relatively undisturbed area north of Norway and Russia, overfishing has led to a decline of fish species and threaten to the future of important fishes such as cod.